We have all heard of the myths and the legends of our history. But is there another story? I was educated in Switzerland as a strict Catholic. And of course, as a young man, I was a deep believer in God. By the way, I still am a deep believer in God. But as a young man, God had to have some qualities for me. For example, God makes no mistake. God is omnipotent, He's all over. He doesn't need a vehicle in which to move from point A to point B. Of course, God makes no mistake. That I had in my head as a 15, 16-year-old boy. Now I was educated in a strict Catholic school led by Jesuits. And there we had to learn Latin and Greek, and always we have to translate parts of the Bible from one language to the other. And I realized slowly that the God of the Bible does not have these qualities I expected. For example, the God in the Bible, He is using a vehicle in which to move around, described by the prophet Ezekiel, for example. And the God in the Bible, He makes mistakes. He creates human, and He says, and it was good, but later He finds it was not good, and He decided to destroy them all. He makes experiences. He sends Adam and Eve in the paradise, and He knows in advance that they will make a sin, and they promptly make what He expected, what He knows, and now He's very disappointed. So I simply had doubts in my own Catholic religion, in my education. I wanted to know if other communities in antiquity have similar stories as we have in my religion. And that was the beginning of Chariots of the Gods. I started to read Hindu mythologies. And even in the college, I was educated in a college, some of the professors who knows that I had doubts in religion said, Erich, go to the university library and ask for a book of Enoch. And as a 17-year-old, I read Enoch. And I realized that here someone is telling us a story in the first person, and he's talking about guardians of the sky, fallen angels, sex with humans. That was really absolutely crazy for my young brain. So my doubts continued. And I decided I want, in the beginning, only as a hobby, follow this path. I was growing up in hotels. My family were hotel managers. So I was grown up running through reception and bars and kitchen and so. And it was absolutely normal that after my high school, I took the way of hotel business. So I was in a hotel special school. I was a waiter. I was a receptionist. I was a barkeeper. And whenever today I sit in a restaurant and I realize that the waiters or the barkeepers are doing something wrong, I said to myself, come on, Erich, you could do better. You could stand behind the bar or behind the reception desk. So when I finally wrote Chariots of the Gods, I was managing director of a 5-star hotel in Davos, which is a place in the Swiss mountain. I was fascinated by the idea that in the Bible, in the religions, we are the victims of misunderstanding. I was fascinated. At that time, in Germany, there was a magazine called Neues Europa, New Europe. And as a young man, I was a waiter already. I was writing for this magazine. Even in high school, I was good in writing. I always had the best notes in writing. So I wrote for this magazine about mysterious things in the Bible and so on. In 1964, that was 4 years before Chariots of the Gods was on the market, I published an article with a full double page in a big Canadian newspaper. It was a German newspaper called Der Nordwesten, the Northwest. appeared in Winnipeg. And the title was, Were the Gods of the Bible Astronauts? By Erich von Däniken. So I was writing about that subject long before I made Chariots of the Gods. I was working in hotels, and the hotels had season. You know, summer season, winter season. Between the seasons, I was always traveling. I learned in all these books about archaeological mysteries, so I wanted to go there. And always before I went to an archaeological place, I knew the literature in advance, and I knew the scientific literature. I knew what the archaeologists said about such and such place. So I read the book before I traveled. Even as a 19-year-old, I was for the first time in Egypt. The high school I was a school for rich kids. And one of the rich kids in my classroom was an Egyptian boy. And he invited me to Egypt. So as a 19-year-old, I was the first time sitting on a camel and standing before the pyramids. As a 19-year-old, I was the first time in subterranean caves in Saqqara. So I was writing about the subject even as a hotel manager. And of course, by the years I learned a lot. And in the evening I was always discussing with some guests. Finally, one of the guests said, "You should write a book, Erich." I said, "A book? Okay, why not?" So I wrote a book, Chariots of the Gods, in my free time, in the afternoon or in the evening. And the original book had 235 pages. Then I sent this manuscript to 20 different publishers in Germany. And 20 publishers sent it back. Each and every one with, "Well, this is not for our society, this is not for our edition, and this is not professional enough," etc. It all went turned back. One of the hotel guests I had was the editor-in-chief of a big German magazine. The magazine's name is Die Zeit, the time. And I said to him, "I have a manuscript now, but nobody wants to publish it." And he said, "Erich, I probably can help you." The next morning, he was phoning to someone which I didn't know, and I hear it, still, it was today. He said to someone, "Listen, Erwin, I am standing here in a hotel in Davos in Switzerland, and I have a young man here, and this young man has written a complete crazy book. But the man is not crazy. You should listen to him." So that was how Chariots of the Gods was published in February 1968 in Switzerland first. The German title in the beginning had, of course, German words. Erinnerungen an die Zukunft means memories of the future. Normally, you can memorize only the past. You cannot memorize the future. So Memories of the Future was the original title in the German language, because I had the idea. We were visited by extraterrestrials, and we, the human race, we will do the same thing in the future. We will visit other solar systems, and we will influence others. That's why Memories of the Future. This title has come to the desk of my British publisher. In London, it was Souvenir Press. And Mr. Ernest Hecht, he could do nothing with Memories of the Future. He said, "Nobody has memories of the future. We can have memory of the past, not of the future." And because I quoted Ezekiel in Chariots of the Gods, and the word chariots is expressed, Chariots of the Gods, in Ezekiel, the British publisher decided to name the book Chariots of the Gods. In Switzerland, we have also different magazines, and one of the big magazines, still exists today, is called Die Weltwoche, the week of the world. And Die Weltwoche, they started to publish the German version of Chariots of the Gods. So it has become a bestseller before the book itself was on the market. Because at that time, I knew already the Mahabharata. I knew the book of Enoch. And I slowly understood, my God, this is all a misunderstanding. The gods must have been astronauts from another solar system. When I wrote Chariots of the Gods, I had the opinion that I am the first person who write about these things. Later, when Chariots of the Gods were on the market, I received several letters where people just mentioned, "Dear Mr. von Däniken, but a similar idea we have already in such and such a science fiction story." So science fiction authors were already writing about this speculation, you know, some astronauts are traveling to another world and there they are looked as the gods and so on. Even in some scientific newspapers, and all this I learned later when Chariots of the Gods were on the market, in scientific newspapers there were articles written by scientists with the same question. So I was not the first with that idea, and not the first on the market, but I was the first one who took it for serious, not as fiction. I took it as fact, and I brought in Chariots of the Gods all the sources. I mentioned where did I have these questions and these answers from, so I took it seriously. You know, when Chariots of the Gods was first published, my German publisher, he found an English publisher. And at that time, I was absolutely no professional concerning writing and these things, being an author. So my German publisher suggested, okay, all the foreign right, we make half and half between the publishing house and the author. I said, okay, I agree. I didn't know nothing about it. So the German publisher sold Chariots of the Gods to a British publisher in London. The British publisher sold the right to an American publisher in New York. Hardcover, it was Putnam's and Son. Putnam's and Son sold the paperback rights to another company in the United States. Now, they sold about 8 million paperbacks of Chariots of the Gods. But this publisher made half and half with Putnam. Putnam made half and half with the British publisher. The British publisher made half and half with the German ones, and the Germans with me. So from this 8 million of Chariots of the Gods as paperback, I maybe received a few cents per copy. So I made money, of course. I'm not blaming no one for it. It was my mistake. But it's not that I have ever become a rich man. I was crashed down from the beginning. Especially archaeologists, but also theologians, crashed me down and made out a fool of me. After Chariots of the Gods was a bestseller #1, even in the United States, soon after it, a small booklet came on the market with the title Crash to the Chariot. The author was a Professor Dr. Clifford Wilson. I asked my publisher, who is this Professor Doctor? Because the press said he's a professor in archaeology. He crashed me down that everything I was writing was nonsense and fantasy, and I did not take serious the scientific community, etc. But my publisher said, it doesn't matter. This anti-Chariots goods simply helps the sale, so don't worry. Years passed, and I met this Professor Dr. Clifford Wilson on a TV show in Australia. And we were very friendly, very correct together. And after we were drinking a glass of wine. And I said, Professor, what kind of archaeology is your speciality? I mean, are you an Egyptologist or Central American archaeologist? He said, Erich, I'm not an archaeologist. I'm a minister. I'm a priest. So do you know that many of the attacks have come from the side of the church? Not only the Catholic Church, different sects crashed me down, made a fool out of me, because they said, come on, he disturbs our believing. And when Chariots of the Gods came on the market, in a Swiss newspaper, I was crashed completely concerning the tombstone of Palenque. It was an archaeologist who crashed me down completely and who gave the scientific explanation what all this is, and Erich von Däniken just told nonsense. He put me in his article in the corner of a group of idiots. I'm a fool. I am just one who wants to have right. And in reality, I understand nothing from archaeology. And he was harming me. And he did it expressively. In the meantime, this archaeologist has become an old man. He wrote me a letter 2 years ago where he apologized for this case. And he said, Erich, I was doing you wrong. And I will not die before you forgive me. And so, of course, I wrote him a wonderful letter. That's all over, the fight 40 years in the past. Of course, I forgive you. Be happy and go to the next dimension. All my books, not only Chariots of the Gods, also other titles, were never published in the communist bloc until 10 years ago, never. Finally, I was in Poland and I met one of the professors, one of these ideologists, and they asked him, what do you have against Erich von Däniken? And he said, Erich, according to Darwin's theory of evolution, everything has grown by itself. It's evolution. We don't need God anymore. God is dead. And now an idiot like you came and creates or invents new gods, extraterrestrials. That's why they were against me. In the meantime, the situation has changed completely. In the meantime, of course, my books do exist in Poland, in Romania, and so on, including in Red China. Whenever I am in one of these countries, I have to sign books, signing sessions, I have to give speeches. They are very, very excited. Of course, there's still criticism. It doesn't matter. I love the criticism. Soon as you speak honestly with the criticism, the scientist, you are honesty. You are not bluffing. You are not trying to cheat him, to lie him. And what you say is correct. And you listen to the other. You are not only talking yourself. After 2 or 3 hours of discussion, the other side always says to me, Mr. von Däniken, we didn't know about this. We never heard about these texts. We learned from each other. I learned from the critics and they learned from me. Since Chariots of the Gods, I have written 40 more titles. And all my titles together, worldwide, they have sold about 72 million copies. I believe that we are unique. Mankind is something special on this universe because of our education. In the education we have 2 possibilities. We have religious people and they believe that God made everything, but we are the crown of creation. We have a scientific community. The scientific community says it's all evolution, but we are on top of evolution. In both cases, if you look at it religiously, crown of creation, or scientifically, top of evolution, in both cases, we look at us, we are unique. Something like us does not exist anymore in the universe. And when I was young, I had the same opinion. I see, we are unique. Then slowly I learned that the gods in antiquity must have been astronauts. So I have become modest and say, come on, Erich, we are nothing in this universe. So the situation has changed my feelings. I have become more sober, more modest, and not talking nonsense and believing we are the greatest. We have to differentiate between old holy writings and archaeological facts. From the old holy writings, the biggest point was definitely the book of Enoch. Because Enoch writes in the first person what happened to him. And the book of Enoch is not part of the Bible. Normal people never hear about the book of Enoch. And if they hear about it, they say it must be a falsificate. In the Bible, you read only 2 phrases about Enoch. He was the first man who disappeared with the fiery chariot, the first human who left our planet. And when I read the German version of the book of Enoch, I was absolutely thrilled. This is fantastic. This is incredible. The book of Enoch I don't consider as mythology. The book of Enoch is written in the first person, and that's absolutely the top title. On the other hand, in India, there is this gigantic mythology of the Mahabharata, the Vedic mythology, and there is Drona Parva. When I read Drona Parva, you are completely shocked again, because in Drona Parva, they clearly speak about 3 cities in the firmament. The humans watched them, they looked up there, the 3 cities had different colors, etc. So when I read this, Also, in the Drawn Up Harbor, for the first time, I read about atomic explosions in the deep past. Cities were completely destroyed. Elephants were burning, turning around. All this is in the Drawn Up Harbor. When I read this, I was shocked also. Hey, come on. Thousands of years ago, and nobody mentioned it. The most interesting fact, which really shocks your head, is the tombstone of Palenque. I was standing on this tombstone, I made photos, and you're completely shocked. The picture is absolutely clear. There is a man sitting in a sort of capsule, bending forward like a motor racing cyclist. He uses his hand to manipulate. He has a mask on his nose. He's sitting on a chair, and outside the frame there is a linking flame. When you see all this, you are completely shocked. And you know, this stone plate was chiseled at least 2,600 years ago in the past. So this was the real revelation in archaeological view. The Temple of Inscription in Palenque, which is in reality a pyramid, according to official archaeology, is maybe about 600 AD, so not very old. But the tomb with the tombstone of Palenque, because there were stalactites and stalagmites, must be much older than the pyramid which was built up later on the tomb. So at least 2,500 years, if not much more. Some 30 years ago, I knew a young man in Germany, and he had close encounter with UFOs. And he told me his story, and he was absolutely a honorable young man, and I believed what he said. He was in a UFO. And I said to him, when you have a contact again with them, please tell them, one of my friends is Erich von Däniken, he wishes that he sees or that he was taken into a UFO. Why don't you give him a chance? And my first question would be the question about God and the universe. How did it all start? What is your religion? What is your knowledge about this spirit of the universe? Have you been here thousands of years ago, or do you know of other societies who were here thousands of years ago? Was I right or wrong by saying the Bible is wrong and other religious books are wrong? Was I wrong or was I correct? I would ask this. A few months later, I met him again. I said, "Did you have contact again?" He said, "Yes." I said, "What about my question?" He said, "Yes, I did. So why have I never seen a UFO?" He said, "They told me if they would show up to me, I would get crazy somehow. My character is in a way that I'm so enthusiastic that I would write and speak only about this, and the press or the scientific community would not take me for serious anymore. I should continue with my line, archaeology and mythology." I am sure within the next 10 years, it will be officially by the scientific community and from the governments, we are under observation. There is life out there. They were here thousands of years ago, and they are back here now. This is a question of the next 10 years, because we have the answer in our genes, that's one thing, and we will find the answer on the surface of Mars, on the backside on the Moon, and on Ceres. On Mars, wonderful photographs have been made of the surface of Mars in a good quality. And there are some people who are studying these photos for days and days. I know one of them. And there are absolutely strange structures on Mars, like something who looks like a pyramid, or something who are definitely a triangle, and other things. Now again, in science, we try to find the next plausible, reasonable answer, which is correct. It's good to do so. But if these things continue, if we find more strange structures on Mars, on Moon, for example, around Mars we have two moons, Phobos and Deimos. And these two moons, they turn around Mars over the equator. If one moon does this by coincidence, it's possible, but two moons not. And they are the only moons who surround their planet Mars faster than Mars turned by itself. Some 20 years ago, I was in Moscow, and I had a discussion with Professor Dr. Shklovsky. Shklovsky was the head of astronomy at the Sternberg Institute in Moscow. And he said to me, Eric, these two moons surrounding Mars are artificial. They are hollow. So this will be one of the explanations in the next future. And on Phobos, some of our satellites filmed something like a monolith. You clearly see the monolith in the shadow. It has nothing to do out there. So we will find on the surface of these planets strange things which definitely are artificial. And then we have no way out. So we have to confess it to the humans. Yes, there is the answer. My desire is to change the spirit of time. From all archaeological points I have written, I know the scientific literature. I do never write about an archaeological temple or complex without knowing the scientific literature. Also, when I read some mythologies or religious books like the Bible, Ezekiel, I know the scientific literature behind it. Concerning Ezekiel, I read 41 books of theologians, professors, doctors in theology, brilliant men who gave their explanation about Ezekiel, how we must look at it. Now it is my desire to bring at least a little part of mankind to new questions. Have we been wrong in our interpreting the Bible, the religions, some of the archaeological artifacts? It is my wish that a part of mankind start to rethink these old things with the new idea, with the new consciousness, and by this we change the world. Because we change the feeling, we change religion, and we become not so arrogant anymore. We become humble, we learn. We are a little teeny piece in a famous universe of millions of extraterrestrial forms of life. I am always looking for stories, and at the moment I am writing a lot of books. I want to find out what is possible and what will be possible in genetics in the future. I want to find out, by the scientific literature, will it be possible to travel to the next stars? Is it possible to reach the speed of light or even over speed of light? So I will learn all this, and I came to my own conclusions. Of course, my project is to speak with a lot of theologians who generally are brilliant people, especially the old theologians. They are not stubborn anymore. You can talk to them. So I hope to change their mind. And I know in some cases I was successful. So that's my working. And I am doing a lot of speeches worldwide. I try to wake up the people, not as a figure of having right. I'm the one who was right. No, that's not the idea. I always say, please criticize. Don't believe what I say. Be a critical, but read the stories. And that's I think what I'm doing now. Chariots of the Gods has definitely influenced millions of people and hundreds of different authors. Since Chariots of the Gods, we have many books on the market by brilliant people. I mean, Tellinger, Sitchin are just some examples. They are other authors, other researchers who go on the same trail and came out with new mysteries of the past, which I didn't saw in my time. So I have influenced a little part of mankind. Always when I have speeches and I'm sitting on a signing table, many people come to me and say, Eric, you have changed my life. I was a theologian and you have changed my life. I was an archaeologist, you have changed my life. I see it now with different eyes. So I have changed a little something. In the meantime, I'm 82 years old. I'm happy and graceful that my brain functions and my body functions more or less. But my brain functions, I have not forgotten nothing of what I learned in the antique old books. Sooner or later I will die, of course. We have a brilliant organization, our society, and I have a brilliant young man who is handling the society. And also we have an organization. You just go to internet and you look to Ramar. Ramar is a society and organization. They put together all the archaeological places, and you can go on camera to these archaeological places. They show the links between, the lines between all these places. So whenever I die, the story I have started will never die out. This will continue. We have to realize we are neither the crown of creation nor the top of evolution. We have to become humble and learn that our universe is full of forms of life and that we have been visited by ETs in the past and we are visited right now. This is what we have to learn and to understand. It was a pleasure to be here. Thank you for your help and your understanding.